I hope that you've all had a great lunch, and I'm going to try and make it interesting and not talk too much statistics, so not to bore you too much about the commercial side of the publishing industry. As Wesley's already said, my name is Nicolle. I'm the country manager for BuzzCity, which is a global advertising network. We predominantly focus on emerging markets. And I'm also the vice chair for the Mobile Marketing Association for South Africa. And for those of you who don't know what that is, it's basically a local arm of the global body. And we focus on, I suppose, evangelizing mobile marketing in this market. Cool, so I'm going to be covering how to effectively monetize your content in Africa through digital advertising. I will touch on some online and some digital, so I've actually made it a little bit more broad for those of you that don't have specific mobile interests. So about 15 years ago, if you were looking for a piece of information, you would probably have been looking for it somewhere in a place like this. If you didn't know, or if you were asked a question about a topic that you didn't necessarily know the answer to, you would probably make up an answer, and the person wouldn't necessarily know whether or not you were telling them the correct answer. Times have changed, and so has the way that we consume information. Information is now easier to consume than ever. We've also changed the way that we engage, interact, and connect with people. These days, we share our loves, lives, and parts of our life on social media channels. Some of you might recognize these images. If you're anything like my husband, you probably have them hoarded in the back of the garage. These days, notably, all of these items will fit into one of these. The world has adopted and embraced the mobile handset. Technical problem? Africa there's actually a sound clip to this. Sorry, the sound clip doesn't seem to be playing, but it is the Lion King song. And the point is that Africa is the king of mobile. 99% of users that use or that access the internet in Africa are accessing the internet via their mobile handsets. Africa is also the fastest growing region worldwide in terms of mobile internet growth. As you can see, South Africa is the top growing region, with Nigeria, Kenya, Tanzania, and Ghana to follow. Of 46 African countries, in the past 3 years, we've seen over 600% growth in terms of online, or in terms of mobile internet growth. Africa also continues to be one of the fastest growing continents globally in terms of mobile internet growth. In a recent study by a research group called Millward Brown, it's a global research company that have actually recently made Joburg their research hub for Africa. They've been conducting a whole bunch of mobile studies, and this is one of the results that they've published. And it basically shows you that Africans have a more positive attitude towards digital advertising. So, we've had a look at what the need is from an audience perspective, and that people actually want digital advertising and have a positive attitude towards it. So let's look at where and how digital advertising fits into the ecosystem. Okay. So respect for the mobile audience and platform will ensure a constructive future for all. Relevance, engagement, surprise and delight, play to strengths, and time and place. Consumption trends across markets presents opportunities for local developers. Consumption needs will vary as our users undergo various life milestones. More relevant content is needed in the South African or in the African market that obviously will grow the fragmented media market space that we're currently in. If you look at educational services over here, a great example, you can obviously see that there's a big need for educational services content in this market. if you look at some examples of where this has been sort of matched very successfully, if you look at Mixit's Bookly application, where they've won numerous awards for this, and they've had exponential growth since the launch of this application, where it basically offers users free educational content to consume on the Mixit platform. We've come a long way since the first display ad in 1993. This is actually an image of what that display ad looked like. It was on Wired Magazine's website. It was an unclickable ad that didn't go to any URL destination. It's come a long way. These days, the advertising or display advertising ecosystem is a lot more complicated than what it used to be. Measuring data and ensuring that adverts are targeted at the correct users has become paramount to any ad campaign's success. Publishers can now plug into exchanges or ad networks and ensure that they achieve the desired yield for their advertising. Advertisers are able to use demand-side platforms and trading desks to ensure that they're able to use a dedicated audience real time. It all sounds a little bit like, I don't know, like going through a finance procedure. It has actually been modeled on that model, so it's very similar to what you would expect to see in a finance environment where you have a collection of data by proprietary systems, either on a supply or a demand side, and then matching and trading of this data via display ads in real time. So it's come a long way since the time of the digital banner in 1993. So you're a publisher. What are your options in terms of monetization? How do you monetize your inventory and ensure that you're getting the best possible value for your commercial opportunity? You can either sell your own inventory, obviously through your own ad sales teams. You can employ a sales house to do it on your behalf, or you can plug into an ad network or exchange, or you can ask Google AdWords to do it for you. Remembering that Google is actually the largest ad network in the world. In my personal opinion, the ad network and exchange space is a space that has got a lot of growth opportunities still in South Africa. There's a lot of sort of demystifying of that opportunity. There's a lot of demystifying of that still needs to happen. Most publishers, I find, are quite wary to relinquish their ad inventory for two main reasons, and I'm sure that there's some of you in the audience that will agree with this. One of them would be that you're worried that you're going to be cannibalizing your premium efforts, and the other one would be that you're worried about the transparency of the ad units that you're going to be obviously displaying on your content. Most ad networks or exchanges will actually offer you transparency in terms of the types of ads that would be placed onto your content, and there are tools. A good ad network or a good exchange will have tools in place that you'll be able to monitor that actual opportunity. So in my belief, there are 5 different points on how you would monetize your ad inventory on any mobile or display or digital property. It's all about growth, earn, build, and sell, and sold. So just to touch on each one of those points and what I mean by them. Growth, you need to grow your actual property. So if you're developing a new digital property and it doesn't have any current inventory and you've just built this application or movie site or website, you need to actually advertise that. A lot of people sort of come to us and say to us, oh, I've got 10,000 impressions or I've got 50,000 impressions, but they forget that they need to actually advertise that property so people know that that property exists and that they can actually, that they can build their user base. So it's quite important to remember. And that you would do either through doing display advertising on other properties or doing good search marketing. Earn. In an ad network or an exchange environment, you can earn revenue from the word go. So even if you're doing 5 impressions or if you're doing 100,000 impressions, those kinds of ad properties accept all different types, will accept you no matter how big or small you are. So my recommendation would be that you earn from the word go and you plug into some kind of ad property like an ad network or an exchange. Use that revenue then to build further on your actual digital opportunity and market it further to ensure that you're growing your property and ensuring that you're growing the actual user base so that obviously there becomes more commercial opportunity. That then ties in nicely with build. So build your brand, build brand awareness for your actual publishing property to ensure that it becomes a desirable property, that you have enough users and enough inventory for users to want to purchase the property and want to actually buy it at a premium. So the reality is you can't go out there and have no users and then not have enough users for somebody to want to purchase that environment on a premium basis. You need to have enough users driving to your actual site or website or mobile site or application that people want to purchase it and that it is a desirable environment. And once you've achieved that through your brand awareness and through the different marketing that you've done and built your actual audience, then you will be able to sell it at a premium. This doesn't by any means mean that you won't have unsold inventory. It's very normal for any mobile property or digital property to have some form of unsold inventory. Generally, you have approximately about a 40 to 60% sell-through ratio, and that leaves quite a large portion of your inventory that will remain unsold. So the idea is that you still then monetize your unsold, again through another ad partner that would not cannibalize your premium ad sales. How do you go about doing that? And how do you not cannibalize your premium ad sales? You do this through, well, in my opinion, you do this through 3 different models. So you can either do it through aggregated search. The way that users access the internet or search on the internet these days is very different. You don't necessarily search for if you're looking for a pair of Levi's, you're not going to search for your magazine down the road that might have published that pair of Levi's. You're going to search for Levi's. And the guys that have the highest search ranking in Google's organic search are probably the ones that are going to have the click. Are global and local that will aggregate content on a vertical search basis, and that you'll then be able to plug into those aggregators and be able to form part of their network, which will then allow advertisers to access your content on a vertical search basis. A good example of this would be there's a global ad company called Glam Media. I don't know if anybody's heard of it. It's the 14th biggest destination online in the world, and they're the biggest blog aggregation company in the world as well. And they specialize in vertical search and basically blog aggregation. The other one would be categorization of your ads. So you can also categorize your ads into tiers. So you obviously list your more premium advertising and sell that off at a premium, and then your less desirable advertising you would sell so above or below the fold and on article views, and you can have a look at how that advertising actually performs. But you would categorize it and then obviously allow other ad partners to access your less desirable inventory, and the more desirable inventory you could either sell off yourself or you would sell at a premium, whether that be with an ad sales house or it be with with your own in-house sales team. The other option is to use blind ad networks or exchanges. These are just some examples. AppNexus is a global exchange, and Tribal Fusion and BuzzCity are local ad networks. And basically, the way that a blind ad network or an exchange works is they allow advertisers to target your inventory on a blind basis, but they target it in a different way. So it would be via channels, or via handsets, or via geographies, or it might be via users. So if it was in an exchange environment, it could be users between a certain age, or males or females. So in summary, lost my train of thought. In summary, the best way to commercialize your content would be to create relevant, engaging content for users to access, which will then in turn increase your user base and then increase your impressions, which is obviously what you're going to be selling, and that will in turn increase the revenue that you're trying to obviously achieve at the end of the day. And that's it.
for those of us who haven't run sites of any significant size and therefore not explored properly the advertising opportunities, do you have a rough idea, like a rough number in your head of what kind of visits, page impressions, or whatever stat you want to use, what kind of number you need to be hitting to make it worth spending, say, a few hours every day optimizing your ad sales on your site? Like, in other words, at what point is it worth investing in?
I suppose it depends on what I suppose what investment you're looking for. So if you're looking for, a significant, if you're looking for 40,000 Rand a month, obviously to be able to achieve that 40,000 Rand, you have to build up to that user base. So it really depends on what you want to get out of it. I suppose, the more you put into it, the more you will get out of it. But yeah, it depends on, it's quite a complex question to answer because I suppose there's quite a lot that contributes towards it. But it really, it depends on what commercial value you want. So, if you're only, I suppose, looking to make a couple of thousand Rand a month and use it as an additional source of income, then, I suppose in a blogging environment, you can look at, there's like a number of very successful bloggers in South Africa that have started off doing it as a part-time thing and have moved into doing it as a full-time thing and actually make a really good income for it, from it. But, that's where I talk about you need to build the desire, because to make any kind of substantial income from building your own site or application, you need to create the desire for somebody to actually want to be there. Because otherwise you're going to be selling it in a network environment. And obviously the network environment is in a much lower yield, because from a network perspective it's much more about reach and about lots of aggregated users, where if you're an advertiser and you're looking to target a specific type of person, you're going to be looking to target a whole variety of different channels to try and reach those users. Where if it's more of an environment, you need to have the desire to want to be on that environment, which will then obviously be a more premium. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I suppose I'm just thinking, let's say I've got a website and I'm getting 50,000 visits a month, and I'm thinking, could I give up part of my day job, or should I really be building towards 500,000 a month before I can give up my day job? Because for those of us who are new to it, we've got no compass.
I think sorry, Nicolle, can I jump in here?
Yeah, thanks.
Okay, it's not just about having the 50,000 users, it's as well as much the page impressions. So how well or how are they actually using that content? So one user can work through 3 to 4, 5 pages and spend a long time. So you want to get an aggregate amount and say 50,000 users are generating about 2 million page impressions. That means you can effectively serve 2 million ads, which means at a certain price point, it makes it worthwhile. And the thing is, you can have 50,000, but if they're coming in and out in the bounce rate, these 50,000 page impressions, you're not having much to work with. And also, you can't look at the same ad every single time, so you need some sort of a rotation going on. So that's why the page impressions becomes more of a thing. How well are they consuming your content? How often they're coming back, and how long they're spending time on your website. Okay.
I think it's also got to do that with your environment. So, like if you've got a tech site and HP come to you and say, "Oh, I want to do advertising on your tech site," you can obviously sell that at a higher premium to that user. But if it's going to be, I don't know, if it's going to be Nivea for men and they just want to have men, then obviously the opportunity for them or the fit for the environment is not as great for them, so they're not necessarily going to pay as much to be within that environment.
If I could ask a question, I'd be quite interested to hear, particularly on a mobile, putting the web aside, really on mobile ads, which obviously a lot of the digital publishing guys are, really delivering their content on mobile. What sort of content, if you can give any feedback, that is doing well, and is it doing well either content that's generated in certain markets, or content that is perhaps generated in the African market but monetized as well in other markets? Just really any insights from a revenue point of view that you can perhaps share.
I think any kind of content that is relevant is localized. So a lot of the time, we find that a lot of the time the content that actually performs best is local, engaging content. So I don't think it's more about a specific type of content. It's more actually about that it's not an application that's been developed and it's the same application that's been accessed globally. It's more about, you know, it's content that's here and it's local and it's for the South African user and it's talking about what's currently going on in South Africa, and it's not, you know, telling you about what's happening in New York Fashion Week, you know, and it's not, you know, it's winter here. So it has to be relevant and local and right for this market at that time, because if you're going to have an ad that's going to be talking about what's going on, or, you know, you're advertising a product, that's for, I'm trying to think of a good example, but if you're advertising a product, for instance, for HP's latest laptop, that's they have like ranges that they focus on for seasons, and if you have a product that's launching for that, and you're advertising it in completely like not related, not relevant content, then you're not going to have as good a click-through rate. And obviously from a mobile environment, the click-through rate is actually what's critical, because a lot of the time when advertisers are purchasing inventory, specifically on mobile devices, they're purchasing it on a CPC basis, or cost per click basis. And if they're purchasing it on cost per click, you know, most publishers sort of go, no, we want to have CPM. That's what we've been told to expect. But the reality is that in mobile, generally your CPC your click-through rate is actually much higher than what it is on your online properties. So your actual eCPM, which is your effective CPM, sorry, getting technical, your effective CPM then ends up being much higher than what you would get if you were actually charging a normal CPM rate to a client.
Question.
Sorry, it's actually cost per thousand. For those of you who didn't know, it stands for cost per mille, which is Latin for some bizarre reason. But it's basically when you sell online, you either sell on a cost per click basis or on a cost per thousand basis, which is basically where they bundle inventory in groups of 1,000, and then you purchase it in that way. So similar to what you would do in radio, because they sell radio obviously in bundles of minutes and not in normal minutes, so very similar kind of concept, which is actually generally why digital advertising works quite well in conjunction with radio, especially mobile, because you're listening to the radio, you're in your car. I'm going to give my trade away. You're in your car and you're checking your mobile phone and you've heard an ad on KFM, and then you're searching whatever that product is, and you're doing it on your phone while you're busy sitting in traffic. So it works very well in conjunction with each other, and generally what you find is when an advertiser is placing a campaign, they'll be doing it on mobile and on radio. There's a good synergy there.
Let's try and coax one more question. Arthur, you're still contemplating. You're good. Okay, great. That's it. Thanks.
Cool.
Thanks very much.